Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Philosophical Midwifery book today to learn to understand human problems, our loved ones' problems, our friends' problems, and wonder about the reason we have problems to begin with. That's something we always do in philosophy. As we go through an activity, we also reflect on the reason why this activity is here for us to go through to begin with. What is its purpose? And a fancy word for that is telos. I'm just fixing my chair. There we go. Telos. Telos is a fancy Greek word that means the end goal. So what's the purpose? Why is it here? Why do we have problems? Why do we have to go through this process of solving problems? Why do we live in a reality where you have to? You can't ignore the problems that are arising within our society as fascism and Nazism is set to take over from capitalism, as anybody who has read The Republic might be able to anticipate. So why are we not reading The Republic? Why do we fail to address these problems? Or rather, what is needed to address these problems? And, well, the answer that Dr. Pierre Grimes proposes is philosophical midwifery has been lacking since the death of Socrates. What's philosophical midwifery? It's a term coined by Socrates himself to describe the process of giving birth to ideas, but also there is an art involved in judging whether the birth is noble or a wind egg. Is it the sort of birth that we are here to give birth to? Some sort of idea? Some sort of creation of the logos? Some purpose for us being here? Or is it a sick idea that is causing our problems, specifically causing us to be blocked from that path to our highest goals? So, if that's the case, let's learn the thing, do the thing, remove the blocks, reach our highest goals, be happy, but also wonder about the significance of having to go through that process to begin with. To remember the nature of reality, the nature of self and reality, and to go through the activity of learning philosophical midwifery. Why? So that's what we're wondering about. That's why we're reading. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you are going to have fun today with me. Let's jump in. Here's the book. Knowing there is a possibility of resolving our own pathologos places a new responsibility upon us. We want to understand we want our understanding of ourselves to be confirmed in our own experience. We recognize within us the need to demonstrate to ourselves that our speculations and dialogues have a vital connection to reality. As our conclusions bind us, they also have the power to loosen the bonds of the pathologos. The bonding of logos. Which is interesting because earlier we were talking about ideal relationships and how they needed to be bonded by the logos as well. Love without understanding, you could say, is a one way of describing the pathologos. Love without understanding. Hey, isn't that the German problem? Duty to Hitler? Do you want to understand the good? And make sure he has an understanding of the good? Or is it love without understanding? So, interesting that the bonds is, I'm going to keep going off on my tangent because it's a bit fun. This is also a puzzle about the third hypothesis of Parmenides. Parmenides outlines 9 hypotheses, 9 different ways of understanding the one, or the idea of one, and the self. And one of them is the logos, the third. But what's interesting about the logos, or the third, is not just the third, it's also, it binds the whole thing. Logos is the intelligible structure that binds everything, especially the dimensions of reality, or the intelligible, understandable hierarchy. So logos runs through the whole thing, which is cool. And it helps us wonder about things like, how come the Japanese Buddhist and Chinese Buddhist oxherding pictures that also are supposed to depict levels of spiritual development, how come they're not the same number as the Parmenides? So wondering about the bond between levels, or the bond between people, or here we have the bond to blah, 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 blah. While our conclusions bind us, our conclusions, our logos, our words bind us. The false conclusions, that's what's being talked about here, is the negative one. The unsuspected false conclusions about the self and the logos, that's our problem. But also adjusting our language has the power to loosen the bonds of the pathologos, and also ultimately free us to discover the true logos, through which we can really bind together as a one, in relationships, to yourself, to the art of the dialectic, and maybe beyond. We see the evolution from belief into the logos as we reflect on what was necessary to emerge from the web of pathologos. The movement is integrative. It brings what was separated together into a unity. So it's interesting because we are distinguishing the way of thinking through belief from the logos. So hang on a second. So we're distinguishing belief from the logos, which is interesting because, people think in different ways. There are different, we call it cognitive functions that we have. Some people are moved by shapes and colors. That's sometimes an insult. We point to people who are moved by shapes. They're usually the right wing or the fascists. Because by being fascist or right-wing, you are actively acting against your own interests. The fascists don't care about the people. They're just motivated by their pathologos. But if you understand something, you can't be tricked into thinking that the bad thing is actually good. Like if you understood, like if you're really good at, I don't know, I should be using a video game. If you really understood Mario Tennis. Laughing at how long it's been since I played video games. Then somebody saying, hey, you should play with Bowser. You're not going to buy that crap. No, I understand the game. I understand Bowser's a bad character. Thank you. That's right wing. That's conservatism. That's fascism. That's Nazism. That's all of that way of thinking can be encapsulated, can be understood in this way. To get people to act against their interest, you must make sure they don't understand the thing. They have to, so what's their method of thinking? Shapes and colors. So you manipulate the shapes and colors. Oh, look at this white person and this scary black person. Or look how happy the rich are. You could be rich one day. So allow us to have all of the wealth. So the color of people's skin, the shapes of people, woman bad, that kind of thing. So that's to think through shapes and colors without reason and understanding. And those shapes and colors inform people's beliefs. Beliefs, we all know, beliefs don't have to be true. We all know people with terrible beliefs and crazy beliefs. We even know cultures and traditions built on crazy, obviously false and harmful beliefs. So we can see why the logos, which is the true intelligible paradigm that we're here to learn from and understand, can be separated away from beliefs. It's important to note. And it's important to recognize because I suppose if people wanted to help others, what we would be doing is encouraging them to move from shapes and colors thinking, from images and beliefs thinking, to reflection on causes, understanding the parts, or the logos. From beliefs to understand. That's what we're encouraging people to do in order to evolve as a species. And so the fascists don't manipulate those of us who haven't made that movement yet. So it's in their interests and it's in everybody's interests. Because not only do we suffer from fascism if we don't help people move from belief to logos or understanding, but even the people doing the fascism, they are themselves motivated by their false images of what's good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing the fascist shit. They too have think in shapes and colors. That's why it's been a bit of a surprise for humanity to realize that the Elon Musks of the world aren't Tony Stark. They're not intelligent. He's the most racist. And the most seeking group acceptance, which is the motivation of image thinkers. Because what makes something true? With no logos, with no actual model of truth. Well, group acceptance maybe? Which is also characteristic of the pathologos. One of the reasons we accept the pathologos is it allows us membership within a kind of group bound in some way by these false conclusions, mate. By these false conclusions. So we're talking about being bound by our false conclusions. So it's surprising to see that even these fascists taking advantage of the image thinkers and the belief thinkers are themselves image thinkers and belief thinkers who are suffering themselves. Of course they are. So it's a win-win-win. Oh, I've got a sound drop for that.
Have you read Brad?
No.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
No.
There's only two options at the end of it.
No.
It's a win-win.
There we go. That's a win-win. We can see the evolution from belief into logos as we reflect on what was necessary to emerge from the web of pathologos. The movement is integrative. It brings what was separated together into a unity. So we are coming together and seeing what it takes to go through this process, which might be very important to help others go through this process too. Each philosophical midwife talk is an opportunity to add another piece to the puzzle. And each piece is tested in the immediacy of our everyday life. It is tested because we carry our understanding with us. Understanding is not something we can choose to turn on and off. It is our way of seeing. We see through what we understand. We do not have to learn to act with understanding. We act through what... Yes. I read that twice. In this change, we become more attentive to what unfolds before us and act more decisively. While it takes courage to return to these unresolved conflicts, it takes cool-headedness to allow ourselves to be with our understanding. Two of the virtues. The courage to return and understand and resolve our conflicts. The courage to step out of the blame game. The courage to see the world as puzzles being given to us at each moment from a profound and caring intelligence, or at least be open to that possibility until we verify it for ourselves in experience. Courage to do that the cool-headedness to stay with your understanding when the group may be saying something different, or when the internal voice of the pathologos might be trying to convince you something to undermine your understanding. That's a kind of a counterattack, excuse me. Other human virtues are also tested as one proceeds, but by far the most important is the desire to discover the truth about oneself and reality. We want the truth. So we can't be motivated by group acceptance. I mean, we don't. It's not that we don't want group acceptance, but that can't be our motivating factor. If the group is saying, burn the Palestinians, or burn the Jews, or burn the whoever, or burn the heathens, as groups are wont to do. Boo for those sorts of groups. Yes, thank you, computer. Some groups are wont to do that. Well, pathologos driven, of course, but that's something that happens. It takes courage to stay with your understanding in spite of that. And, cool-headedness. If you've ever seen a right-winger debate, that's their game. They're trying to get you to move off understanding because they know their position is irrational. Or they lack so much self-reflection they reject the possibility of understanding. The point is they try and rile you up or speak over you or yell at you or attack you or disgust you. These are all techniques that anti-logos, or what Socrates calls philonikos, love of fighters, debate bros. It's what they do, but we need cool-headedness to stay with our understanding. Other human virtues are also tested. Yeah, we've heard that. To discover the truth of oneself and reality. The natural result of this process is that the philosophical midwife learns to trust in reason. Hooray. And be guided by the principles of our art.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
No.
Where's the joy? Where's the...
What? I haven't been on my soundboard for a while, so I'm just trying to figure out where everything is. There's no labels. The smart thing to do would be to put labels on the little touchpad that I have for my sound drops.
It's a win-win.
It would be a win-win. To trust in reason, sometimes we say follow the logos, and to be guided by the principles of the art. That's important too. And I've experienced, both are important. You don't go into midwifery with your beliefs and images and try to justify them. That's not midwifery. You follow reason. Equally so, there are certain things that come up that you need to anticipate. For example, the counterattack. Some people are saying that the Nazi resurgence in America is a kind of counterattack against the new way of telling the truth, against powerful, tyrannical white men within certain industries like Hollywood. The Me Too movement, which is great, let's tell the truth. But now we have a counterattack maybe to the introduction of a new higher way of being that's more aligned to truth and logos, words, speaking up. The counterattack is to go the other way. Let's go full Nazi. Remove any human rights. While the oligarchs just plunder all the money and earn billions of extra dollars a day. Like that video of Donald Trump talking to these old white men in his office. You earned $1 billion today. You earned $900 million today. But all we had to do was remove lunches for children, Meals on Wheels for elderly, Medicare for all of the citizens we're supposed to be looking after. that neat. And they high-fived and then they made out. And that was on Fox News. So, so recognizing that the counterattack towards truth is part of the human condition and part of the pathologos condition is essential. That's following the principles. And also the principles are set up to do our best to avoid triggering those counterattacks in midwifery, or just within our species as we have to learn to move from belief to logos. And what do we do when it comes up? Because if we don't have principles that we can follow, our opinions might be drawing us to believe the pathologos and end the dialogue. We can't end the dialogue. Ending the dialogue means allowing pathologos to take over the dialogue. It's like when people say, you think too much. That's stupid. What you just said is stupid. You need to think a bit more. Because you can't not think. It's just something that happens. You can understand how you think. You can learn from how you think. You can even guide your own thinking in an artful way. But saying don't think is a lie. What they're really saying is don't be in control of your own thinking. And the next thing you'd have to ask is the question we always ask, why? Is it so you can control my thinking and manipulate me? Or are you being a toady for some other tyrant? Like the MAGA people, the belief in image thinking people who are being manipulated to act against their own interest for tyrants, Nazis, and billionaires. Those people attack those who want to reason and understand and help them. So they would be the ones who say, oh, you think too much, or you're an intellectual, or you're a elitist, Hollywood elitist, or whatever they say. To get you to not be in charge of your thinking, not so they can manipulate you, but so the same people who manipulated them can manipulate you. So that's what makes them the bootlickers. Or the prison wardens for the Hitlers. Whatever you call, whatever metaphor you want to use. So, why do we start talking about people who say, don't think, or you think too much? Oh yes, being in artful charge of thinking in the process. Equally so, that's why we have principles. Yes, there are going to be counterattacks, and you can't help that. You don't decide to have counterattacks. It's just happening. That's part of having thoughts. Part of being human. But you can navigate your reaction to it. And you can wonder who is thinking, or what is watching the thoughts. You can even jot them down, especially if they're blocks, and then apply the dialectic to those notes to see that there is a message there. Anyway, all this is following principles, so we have to follow the principles and trust in the reason. Oh yes, so the principle would be, when those counterattacks come up in midwifery, this is what you do. You can't pretend that the midwife won't have counterattacks, because doing midwifery is a challenging experience, is sharing in reason and principles, or the logos in the highest way, doing your best to be have an art. You're trying to benefit the subject, so it's the highest kind of functioning a human can do, so it's guaranteed to trigger counterattacks. from the pathologos, whose job is to silence your highest functioning so that you can toe the line for the ignorance of some sort of tribe leader. But the process of applying courage and cool-headedness to address conflicts, to be with understanding, and to discover the truth about self and reality, through that process you will learn to trust in reason itself and the principles, is the promise of this sentence. Facing a problem brings us to see that there may be something we haven't grasped with clarity. So we need to grasp something with clarity. For to attempt to achieve what we have failed at before is to reopen those earlier conflicts, and that means we run the risk of encountering failure again. So that's the risk. And this is often why people don't like modern psychotherapy, which doesn't have the logos in it yet, because you're reliving your past failures. You're reopening old scars without the possibility of healing and learning. We need to add the healing and learning part. That's midwifery. So we have a risk. Risk of encountering failure again if we reopen earlier conflicts. There is no alternative if we are to seek to realize our dreams, our highest goals, because whatever part of our conflict has not been seen will emerge to block us. That's what we just talked about. The higher you seek to function, whatever part of your conflict has not been seen with clarity, grasped with clarity, will emerge to block us. Thus, it is a certainty that these conflicts will reappear. But what is different is the knowledge that it all can be anticipated. So we talked about when we introduce the logos to people and to societies and to humanity, we can anticipate the counterattack. All of the image and shapes and color thinking people, all the bootlickers and all the fascists will emerge to show themselves in opposition to our evolution, to the logos, rationality, maturity, the ability to solve problems and reach our highest good. It will happen. Certainly it will happen. Certainly. So, if we are smart and good people, we will recognize this and do our best to set up the principles we can adhere to mitigate the effect of their counterattack, stop them from blowing up any people, stop them from sending people to any sort of concentration camp, stop them from any genocide while they fight back against truth, and create the conditions where they can reflect on why they have a strong allegiance to whatever belief it is in the face of empathy. Why does their way of being lack empathy? What are the beliefs and images behind it? How can we understand it within as a part of a whole? It's this way of thinking. Here's the next one. Here's how you can go to the next one. Here's how you can share more in the logos. We can't clutch our pearls and say, oh, the fascists fought back against the logos. We can't. That's silly. Of course they will. Because we did ourselves. Whenever we had an insight through learning, through midwifery, there is a counterattack. It's inevitable. But it can be anticipated, understood, addressed, worked around, and learned from. That's the game. Let me give you an example. It's a bit silly and it's a bit fun, but anybody who knows basketball knows of Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors. He's a very good basketball player. He's very good at shooting 3-pointers, which is far away from the basket. Gives you more points. Gives you 3 points instead of 2 points. Okay? So he's really, really good. He gets them in all the time. He's the best sharpshooter. Now, the Warriors have just made it into the playoffs. The playoffs are the finals at the end to see, like, it's where people try really hard, where the best athletes try in their hardest. Because during the season, you know, if there are some athletes who are head and shoulders above everyone else, they don't have to try as hard. But now it's time to try hard. So it's the playoffs. That's why the playoffs are interesting. The best athletes are doing their best. We can finally see excellence. Now, one great player is Stephen Curry. He can't win it all. You can't win the championship on your own. You could, they say, well, I don't know if they say it, but I've heard this somewhere. I'm going to make it up. It's like a grand piano. You need a couple of people to carry. Everyone can play on the grand piano, but you have to carry the grand piano, you need a few people. To carry a basketball team, you need a couple of people. And they just got one, Jimmy Butler. He also is able to share in greatness of basketball. Jimmy Butler isn't doesn't have great height. Well, he does. He's very tall, of course, but compared to other NBA players, he doesn't have any exceptional athletic advantage. His advantage is in his character, which is part of it. It brings out the other aspects of your ability. And his character and his ability, he uses to raise everyone up around him. Famously, he's known for that. Taking a team of scrubs all the way to the playoff finals, yeah. But now he's not surrounded by scrubs. He's on the Golden State Warriors with Stephen Curry. So it would have been a really, really fun finals run to see two athletes who have great character and can participate in athletic excellence at the top of their sport, challenge all of the other freak athletes in basketball, in NBA basketball. It would have been really fun. But there is a player on the Golden State Warriors who has a huge pathologos problem that manifests often, and has cost the Warriors a couple of championships, whole championships. They could have won the whole thing had his anger not exploded in various different ways. So what? It happened again. The same problem inevitably happened again when he had to be his best in the playoffs in a chance where they can possibly win, because now they have Jimmy Butler. He needed to be his best. What happens when you are trying to be your best? The pathologos counterattack comes in. What's the motivation behind it? Anger. Anger at what? Anger at an unresolved conflict. Why are we angry? Because our soul does not accept an injustice against the self. We have a past injustice against the self we need to return to in philosophical midwifery and address. Otherwise what? Otherwise they will emerge. We can anticipate their emergence. Inevitably, as part of the human condition. So the question is, who on the Warriors staff let Draymond let this player into the game who was going to act in this way and has acted in this way famously many times? Two good players. The better players, the more he is likely to sabotage their excellence, because the pathologos is triggered against excellence. So here he is, supposed to be a pair, a duo with Jimmy Butler in defense, because both of them are under 7 foot tall, and the defenders in the NBA are 7 foot tall or above, and beasts of human beings. The most beasts of human beings that there are human beings. So they had to work together defensively, and they didn't. One was doing his best to. One spent the whole half season that he's been with the Warriors showing that he has their back. but he didn't get it in return. Why? Failed to address the cause of a conflict that cost the Warriors excellent players. This hasn't happened before. The best player in the world, perhaps, sabotaged by the same problem. A young star that the Warriors... Anyway, the point... I'm going on a bit of a tangent because I'm a bit disappointed that it happened again, and whoever was supposed to be the coaching staff of the Warriors dropped the ball, to be very clever with a pun. Again. So, and a good basketball team will have principles in place to recognize these obvious, anticipatable blow-ups that will happen because of people's unresolved anger, preventing them from functioning with excellence, whatever we do. Be it winning the NBA title or doing something far more important, philosophical midwifery. Okay? It is with certainty, it is a certainty that these conflicts will reappear, but what is different is the knowledge that all this can be anticipated, it can be studied, and in the moment of its appearance, there is a challenge to resolve it. So the normal way of solving problems in the NBA is the stupid, fascist, baby brain way, which is what? Problems are an excuse to inflict punishment, so he'll likely just get a fine. Who cares? We are presenting a challenge to actually understand and resolve it. Punitive justice doesn't do anything, doesn't work. It just maintains the problem and causes extra suffering. We are given an opportunity to confirm our understanding, test it, and improve its well, that's nice. Okay, so one of the difference between image thinking or shapes and colors or beliefs is understanding is rational and you can demonstrate it in conversation and it will always work, that kind of thing. But also you can confirm your understanding. It's testable. You can always say, well, you didn't believe hard enough to a belief. But also we can improve its precision. Always seeking to do better. That's the game. And in this process, which is what we're doing here, right? We're improving on where we are in history. We're improving on our understanding of the logos by adding midwifery. The next stage that maybe we can do is improve on the what would we call it? The spiritual and intellectual tradition of humanity. But yeah, I think that's fair. Not just by adding midwifery to the dialectic that Plato's given us. Remember, Socrates did this, but he didn't write it down. So we're adding this back in. The next step would be involving dreams. Again, Socrates talked about the significance of dream analysis, but didn't write anything down. So we have to improve our precision by adding dream analysis into the tradition next. Yeah, that's neat. Something to be excited about. Something that Pierre himself let us know before he passed on. That is to come. Oh, that sounds very professorial. Well, it is, isn't it? Dramatic. After me will come somebody who will teach you how to do dream analysis, and you will be able to understand your problems. He will come after me. He will ride a golden steed. I don't know. So yeah, improving the precision. And it is in this process we can enter into the logos. Oh, that's what we want to do. We want to enter into the logos. Be in the zone. to keep the basketball analogy rolling. Enter into the logos. But the logos is not merely understanding. Of course, we're talking about a way of being where you're in the zone, where all of your three-pointers are going in, and all of your rebounds are on the head of Draymond Green, because he won't protect you on your way down. I seem so bitter. I don't really care. I care a little bit. It would have been fun. Jimmy Butler can ball. That guy's amazing. From a philosophical perspective, that's my interest. I'm not interested in who can put the ball in the hoop. If you know about Jimmy Butler, you know about the challenges he's had to face as someone participating as excellence in a way that's beyond his coaches and his white American coaching staff, who are often very old from another generation, who don't see or appreciate his excellence, or do see it and have a very negative reaction to it. Obviously, if you know anything about American culture and history, the way he approached and addressed those sort of difficulties speaks a lot to his character, his courage, his cool-headedness, his ability to share words, participate in logos, and seemingly a genuine desire for truth and integrity. So he's had a fascinating story, philosophically. And now he's facing a potential for development along that line, because the Warriors do have that potential, especially when there are good souls like Stephen Curry who have the potential to go down that way. But there are also people like Draymond who have the potential to take it down the other way. And a coaching staff which does not seem to be able to tell the difference. So it would have been fun to see him take the good path. Anyway, this is a tangent. This is Twitch. This is supposed to be video game analogies, not sports analogies. What's going on? The logos is not merely understanding. Let's highlight that. For the understanding that one has must be tested and confirmed in experience. It must be. Otherwise, what are we doing? This is supposed to change you and improve you. Not when you die or in the part. I mean, yes. But often people who are trying to manipulate or keep you at the level of belief will promise one day you'll be rich. One day the wealth will trickle down. One day you'll go to heaven. One day things will be fair. No, not here. Not real. Not really. It must be right now for you to see it for yourself through your understanding, but also test and confirmed in your direct experience, which doesn't take work because you see through your understanding. It just takes the willingness to follow these principles. Notice, these are not achievements. You don't have to be able to achieve anything. You don't have to be an NBA caliber player. These virtues are things that you try your best to do at all times. It's an activity. Which is cool. The confirming is an integrative movement, for without testing and validating, oh, that's a cool word. It's an integrative movement. What is our confirming? Isn't that neat? For without testing and validating our understanding, oh, see, this is why philosophy is so good. How nice is it to hear someone say it's good to test and validate your understanding compared to just repeat it on a test or do as you're told. Or it's just faith, or who's to say what's right and wrong? Who's to say what we should do with our government? Who should they say about religion? How about we test and validate our understanding? People. For without testing and validating our understanding in our reality, we are left only with possibilities or likely stories. Whatever one is seeing and understanding, it will not be retained. And its maturing power will be lost. So there is a power in our understanding that matures us. That's neat. Do you feel more mature having watched this much of the podcast? Its maturing power will be lost unless confirmed by one's experience. It is by returning. This reminds me of learning songs. Like as a musician, you learn a bunch of songs, and you can to memorize them. You need to look at the lyrics and the chords and stuff, and see if there's a pattern, help you to make sense of why the song is written the way it is. Usually it'll be the same as all other songs except for some differences. Like there'll be a verse, a chorus, a bridge, but there'll be a difference that'll make it unique. You can understand that. But then you got to play the song, otherwise you forget all those things you saw about the patterns of the song. And I'm guilty of that recently. I've been learning a bunch of new songs, but then when I go back to it, because I haven't played them, I forget what I'd seen. So, play your songs, seek your goals, speak your logos. It is do midwifery, master it. It is by returning again and again to test one's vision in one's present circumstance. When? Again and again. What do? Return. Again and again. Test one's vision in one's present circumstance. That's where maturity is gained. And logos becomes... Oh, how cool is that? Logos becomes manifest. Democracy manifest. So we're manifesting the logos. And that's important because maturity, remember from chapter 1, one of the motivating events of the author to discover this and write this book was fighting the Nazis in World War II, walking down that Roman road and realizing he's just repeating the same pattern that's been played out over years and years and years. The Roman barbarians walking down that road to fight the barbarians attacking the Roman Empire. Now it's the Nazis. Same, no different.
This guy had to... No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
No one seems to be growing, learning, or addressing actual problems. And so the question was, why can we be so intelligent in other areas, but so irrational and immature when it comes to ourselves? So his quest was to find maturity, or the conditions and causes for us to become mature, address our problems, and no longer repeat the same terrible catastrophes, blood-soaked pages of human history. So we really want to know what it means to be mature, and here we have returning again and again to test one's vision, which is some sort of integrative, unifying experience that happens through understanding. Testing or validating our understanding is an integrating movement. You keep doing that again and again. That's how you gain maturity. So, his question back then was, how do we stop the Nazis? Not just stop the Nazis, but how do we stop every reiteration of the Nazis? The Fourth Reich, the Fifth Reich, the Sixth Reich, but also the various fascist movements that happened in opposition to the logos before that. How do we become mature or manifest the logos? So here is an answer to that question. Is it enough? Let's keep reading. We know too well that here's a stuffy. And here's my chicken. He lives next to my desk. And here is a swan. I thought we should have a moment to have a look at some furry animals on my desk before we keep reading. See? And that's a big one of this. I haven't decided if that's the mummy stuffy and this is the baby stuffy, but I do call this the baby stuffy. Anyway, so that's who lives on my desk. I also have a dog that makes cool background, like cosmic background shapes. But if you want to see that, you have to tune into my music stream, Jed Phoenix Music on Twitch. And he's a space dog. Here he is. He's a space dog. See? Hello, space dog. See? He has these weapons that make stars on my walls. So that is Philosophy Desk Roundup. We know too well that that only in our present circumstances can we confirm and verify our understanding. We know too well. Since being in a problem is responding... Oh, here we go. Now we have a definition. This is just gold. Look at how many... I tend to fawn over beautiful and intelligible things. This is one of them. Look how much highlighting we do. All of the truth bombs he's been dropping on our asses, and now just casually throwing into this next sentence. Oh, you know what a problem is? Oh, easy. What? Yeah, I can tell you what a problem is. Easy. It's responding to the present as if it was the past Pathologocene. That's all. That's what a problem is. That's what a human problem is. Ah, so good. So yes, I do tend to fawn over beautiful and intelligible things. But that's, I mean, you gotta give this one to me. A problem is responding to the present as if it were a past Pathologocene. Does that help you? Should. We apply past solutions to analogous situations without realizing the scenes are only in part analogous. This is interesting because this is how we think. We think through analogy. We have to imagine and postulate and hypothesize what this thing that we don't yet see is. And then we test that to actually see if we get there. If you've never been to LA before, you have to imagine what it is and use good maps. That's why we read the text we read. They're good maps of the logos. And then you have to test out. It's a kind of analogy, you could say. Now, okay, that's not much of an analogy because it's a map. It's almost lit. It's not much of an. It is an analogy. It's not the real thing. But if you want to learn, let's say, yeah, like the whole Jimmy Butler story is an analogy to what would be needed in excellent group dynamics or in any sort of mastery over a team or a group or your own soul, where you can recognize the difference between Draymond and Steph. And what would happen if you tried to pursue something great? You introduce a Jimmy Butler. But the humor, I think, comes from pushing the boundaries of the analogy, going one step a little bit too far in a funny way. But also that tells you, okay, this is the extent of the analogy. You need to upgrade your analogy or improve it. But also analogies can, so we've got learning, we've got comedy, tragedy. Not realizing your analogy, not realizing you have escaped the actual boundaries of the analogy. You cannot continue to relate to this person in this kind of way or this situation in this kind of way because the analogy you're applying, this thing is like basketball, this thing is like riding a bike, this thing is like flying a plane, this thing is like medicine, only reaches so far. For example, you might say, help people understand the role of a king, and by saying a king cares for his subjects like analogy, like a shepherd cares for his sheep. But if the king started to actually fleece the people, either of their money or actually, murder them, the genocides and the El Salvadorian death camps for people who speak out against the Nazis in America right now. That's the tragedy. You don't treat people like sheep to that extent. You've gone beyond you haven't seen the boundary of the analogy. Tragically, and you're playing out the tragic implications of applying an inaccurate analogy to a situation. Or you've gone beyond the scope of the analogy. Now, this particular one seems to be saying there is no scope. Or rather, well, let's see. Have we gone beyond the bounds, or is it just a false analogy to begin with? Is our present moment in no way analogous to our origin scene? Let's see. Being in a problem is responding to the present as if it were the past pathologo scene. We apply a past solution. So this is what we do that causes the problem. Normally, I would do this. When I was a little kid, I would make poop jokes and try and attack my older brother, who I was secretly in love with or really, really fond of, and I wanted his attention more than anything. But whenever I wouldn't get it in the past, I would throw a fit, I would blame him. You know what I would really do? I would really cause a problem, then go running to mother and say, look what big brother Harry did. He's a bad kid, isn't he? Yes, isn't he? And I'm the best kid, and I get all the cookies, and I would get all the cookies. But then my big brother would be mad at me, and then, and so on and so on. And then I'd have to make poop jokes to make him laugh. I'd have to play the clown, the fool, as part of my role within the dynamics of the family pathologos dynamic, as we've read earlier. But those solutions might not apply when you've left that house, causing a problem that we don't recognize because we think we're doing our best, which is what? Thinking, analogy, but we don't recognize the analogy that we are carrying and using is false. It hasn't been addressed. You're too young to address it then. And it requires learning about philosophical midwifery to see that it can be addressed and should be addressed now. So it's not a blame game. But if you have been lucky enough to come across the stream, here's your call to adventure. Here's your, invitation to do what you're supposed to be doing now. This. No blame. Only inviting people to have fun in the best kind of way. This is the noblest game. If we do that, we can realize we are applying past solutions to what we think are analogous situations without realizing it, without recognizing. So we don't have recognition. Remember, recognition is tied to seeing or understanding. That the scenes are only in part analogous. So there's our question. Our question was, have we gone beyond the reach of the analogy? Is the king actually fleecing? The same way Elon and Donald Trump are fleecing the American people of all of their money and all of their social services and all of the things you need to live in a society? Gone past the analogy, or was it a false analogy to begin with? Like some people say, raising a kid is like beating a punching bag. What? No. That's not the analogy. There is no aspect of that can apply. So it says it's in part, so that might be an answer to our question. Thus, in seeking out those present scenes, so now we are directing our focus, we're honing our attention, like Sherlock Holmes. And now we recognize this, and we're going to look. We are going to actively seek out present scenes. Look for scenes in our life that are analogous to those early pathologo scenes. Go looking. Or create them by seeking your excellence, seeking your highest, most meaningful goals about self, mind, and logos. Because you were doing that when you were young, and the introduction of the pathologos scene came in response to that, so you're picking up where you left off. That's the integrative movement. But also, it's creating the conditions for similar pathologo scenes to emerge. Which is great, because that's what we're looking for.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
So if we do find analogous scenes, we can find the arena. The battle arena in Oblivion or Elder Scrolls or something. Or One Piece, the battle arena. Or Hunter x Hunter, that big tower battle arena thing. We're looking for the arena in which we can emerge from the catacombs of false belief. We're not emerging from poverty, like in fighting the battle arena in Morrowind, or emerging from obscurity to gain your hunter's license in Hunter x Hunter. We are looking for this arena so we can emerge from something even greater and more heroic and more archetypally heroic. We are emerging from something more heroic. We are doing something more heroic and emerging from the catacombs of false belief. So there's a nice analogy that he's giving us. You can imagine the progress that we are going through in this game as emerging from the, Diablo catacombs. Diablo 2 catacombs. So there's an analogy he's giving us to understand what we're doing. And it is heroic, emerging from the catacombs. We've also got the analogy of being sleepwalking or being a zombie with a psychic parasite. So we can see how media or stories or games can pick up the true thing and apply an analogy to it and play out that analogy for a few seasons or for a game or something. And that would be art. So long as you are using your understanding that you're getting from this book, understanding what understanding is, understanding how to emerge from the catacombs of false belief, image thinking, shapes and colors, ignorance, pathologos, prejudice even. Maybe remove prejudice because prejudice is a bit different. Prejudice can be resolved through new evidence, unlike pathologos. Different kind of a problem. You're artfully arranging and orchestrating the movement through that analogy, through that metaphor. You can hilariously push the implications, have a cow scene to call back to Diablo 2. You might even want to explore the tragic implications of going too far with that analogy, maybe, I don't know. But the idea is you want to analogously represent this movement from the false catacombs of false belief, all the things that you had to go through, and is anticipatory as part of the paradigm of human development. You can anticipate we will go through. Talk about that, discuss it, understand it, using analogy, communicate it through your art, allowing you to become more mature, because in the creation of that you are Returning again and again to test the vision in your present circumstances. That's how maturity is gained, by testing your understanding in the creation of your art. To do such a thing, you are returning again and again. Each day you're working on it to test your vision, and you will be gaining maturity, and you will be manifesting the logos, sharing more in the logos. You'll be doing your own development, and you'll be creating something artful that will benefit humanity. Can become an object of reflection for those who play the game or watch the movie or dig the series. And if it is manifesting the logos, there might be an inherent symmetry that you might not be aware of, but might be becoming more and more aware of the more maturity or more seeing of the logos you gain by returning again and again to it. Therefore, you'll end up creating a piece of work that will reward the viewer, the watcher, the player for rewatching, replaying. They'll see it different levels as they progress, which is exactly how the Platonic dialogues are written. You reward repeat views because their puzzles are, integrative. As you see certain things, they integrate and they progress forward or upwards, become more and more of a whole. There's a twist, and then a twist to the twist, and then a red herring, and then whatever. That's the game. Okay, so we're recognizing that our problems are caused by a false analogy that we're applying that is only in part analogous. So there are some parts, maybe there is someone being kind of a tyrant like our parents were to us in our origin scene. So maybe that's the sameness. That's the part of the analogy that's the same. But the problem comes when we go beyond the reach of that analogy and say, and therefore I have to make poop jokes, or I have to attack everyone and lie so mummy picks me. That kind of thing. That doesn't work in the real. You've gone beyond the reach of the analogy from your childhood, which is the nature of a problem. That's what a problem is. It's not something to feel bad about. It's not something to defend ever. It's something to have maturity about and find the time when you're doing it, because we are all doing it. Some more obviously than others, and of course, because it's our blind spot, it's easier to see in others. So we invite people to this game to return again and again to reflect with understanding, following the logos, following the principles, and trusting in reason. And it's fun. And I need more drops. When I was on break for the last couple of weeks to focus on music stuff, I kept hearing sound drops everywhere, but I never sat down to pull them from the sources. So now I'm thinking, oh, that sound drop would work really well here. And seeking out those present scenes that are analogous to those early pathologo scenes, we find the battle arena. We find the arena in which we can emerge from the catacombs of false belief. Ooh. Do I have an ooh sound? There we go. Because it is there that we can test whether or not we are free. Okay, so it's here in the arena that we can test whether or not we are free of those conclusions that bind us to the past. That's what we're testing. Are we free of them? Do we no longer see other people as a projection of our older brother Harry and our mum and our dad and that scene where that thing happened? While it is clear that the imposition of belief establishes power and authority over the subject. Interesting. Insisting on your beliefs. It is not at all obvious that we always have an opportunity to get out of it. So it's the imposition of beliefs that cause our imprisonment and our tyrannical enslavement. So, that's why it's a standard. If anyone is insisting on beliefs or opinions, you know that they're fucked. Or that's a Australian expression. Ooh, I shouldn't swear. But it is fucked. Because it's to establish power and authority over the subject. Anyone who's good will do their best to help you move from beliefs to understanding and logos. That's how you benefit. So if anyone is insisting on doing the opposite to what benefits, you know they are actively seeking to harm you. Whether they know it or not, whether they like it or not, that's what they are, because that's what they're functioning as. So what? Recognize that. Who is insisting on faith or belief or hope rather than understanding? Politicians? Cult leaders? Fascists? You would never accept a mechanic who would say to you, hey, just believe me, bro. Why does the gas plug go into this? I need to understand how it fits because I'm trying to become a mechanic myself. Just believe me. Every time it comes into the shop, throw your hands up and exclaim how powerless and stupid you are because you are still motivated by beliefs, which are not your own seeing, and then come running to me and ask me, pretty please, can you tell me how to fix this gas plug? Please, 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 please. And I will decide whether you've been an obedient slave, and I will whip you maybe, or I will promise to help you if only you give me all of your profits. That kind of horse shit. Same game, right? Same game. Same, but different. But what is, so it's obvious that that's why the imposition of beliefs are there, to establish a power and authority over the subject. Notice not power with, power over. Key difference. Dialectic will allow you to have power with the logos, power with your soul, power with your friends, power in your relationships, with our ability to become bound by a shared love of logos. I'm out of coffee. It is not at all obvious that we always have the opportunity to get out of it. That's what we have to make obvious. That's our job. In every moment, there is a chance to get out of our submission. How many moments? Every moment. Every moment. Isn't that amazing? Yes. There is, what do we say? Ooh. Every moment, there is a chance to get out of our submission. To get out. Just get out of our submission, mate. All right? Struth, we can get out of our submission. Yes. And what do? Regain our integrity. Wow. And in this struggle to become more authentically ourselves, it's a process. We help each other as we struggle. We stand next to each other and help carry them because
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
It's a shared adventure, and
You're a wizard, Harry.
we're all wizards, Harry. We're all here to fulfill this archetypal hero's journey. And then make media about it. Have fun with it. It's a struggle to become more authentically ourselves. Hooray. In each moment. Dig this music, by the way. The network of the pathologos is what we struggle against. There's a network of the pathologos. If you've ever watched the Sherlock Holmes, if you like this channel, you will really like the Benedict Cumberbatch series of Sherlock Holmes. and there is talking. I'm not going to blow it in case you haven't seen it. Check it out. But there is a moment in the series where he has to untangle the web of something, just like untangling the web of the pathologos. The network of the pathologos is what we struggle against, and its formidable structure is, okay, it has a formidable structure, but it's nothing other than a set, excuse me, of interpretations we accept is real. So, it's easy to see in the least rational, the most pathologos driven, or the most image and shapes and colors thinking people. We can see that they're projecting. We often talk about how they fight windmills. The right wing just project their own problems onto the left and accept it as real. They're always telling on themselves because the thing that they are projecting is an own interpretation, which is caused by this false analogy they're carrying, which they themselves would have suffered and continue to suffer from. And if they get their way, are looking to find the ability or conditions to play out that same kind of imposition of false beliefs for power and authority on someone else. The very thing that Trump said he was fighting for, make everyone rich, he was trying to do the opposite. He's telling on himself. I'm trying to fight against people who are squashing free speech, says Elon Musk. No, that's an interpretation that he's projecting, that he is suffering from. That's why he says, oh, I feel like I can't say anything while owning the Twitter. And what will he do? If we're motivated by our pathologos, we are seeking the conditions to inflict it on others. So what does he do? Censors everyone who's not a Nazi. Obvious and anticipatory, able to be anticipated so long as we understand the model, or move from beliefs to understanding the logos. And have the courage to return to such conflicts again and again, have the cool-headedness to stay with our understanding, however hard it is or however pleasant it is, pleasure and pain, fear and desire, and to discover the truth about self and reality, which involves not only solving those puzzles of Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all that, not only solving the puzzles of what were the conditions that allowed that to come to surface, but also asking the questions of why they exist in our self and reality to begin with. What's the purpose of the pathologos? Why go through this? Discover the truth. So, we can understand that. Understand that projection or that telling on themselves or the heralding or this is what I will do if I'm in power. Remove free speech, and you can tell because I'm the one projecting this removal of free speech on the world. How fun would that be, by the way? For like, oh yeah, okay, we see it. Okay, we get it. Right. Time to take the toys off the babies and clean our room. No, and play a different game. Let's have fun. Let's look at all of that stuff that Elon did and Trump did and understand it. Help them, help all of us. What a world that would be, to see all problems as puzzles. Anyway. By the way, that might be where we're headed. That might be a happy and healthy humanity. And then, of course, once we have a healthy and mature humanity, we can ask the next question. What next? What would be not just the health of the body, but the excellence of the body? Not just a healthy Jimmy Butler, but a playoff Jimmy Butler. Not just sickness to go to a doctor for health, but now that you're healthy, what would happen if we were in shape? What kind of shape? Further development through the logos, of course. The power is not physical shape, of course. Those physical things would be more like health. Recognize we do have physical bodies that need a house and food and stuff, so let's do that. And air. Let's not pretend we don't need that stuff and just allow exploitation through capitalism. That's baby brain. That's basic stuff. We gotta do that first. We gotta change our nappies. Change babies' nappies. And then we can go ahead and... Anyway. You get it. You get it. I know you. You get it. So the network of pathologos is what we struggle against. And its formidable structure is nothing other than a set of interpretations that we accept as real. The power is then assured and kept in place. Okay, remember, just like with our goals, once you reach the goal, there has to be something to maintain our goals. It's assured and kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the pathologos. Our reluctance to examine them maintains our problem. Right? Why did Draymond punch Jordan Peele? We're not going to talk about that. We are going to find the person who leaked the video footage and we're going to fire them and blame them. Blame the guy who told the truth about the punch? Yes. Just like Donald Trump tries to blame the reporters for reporting on the things that he done. Right? Just like, hey, when he said in the pandemic, if we stopped testing for COVID, we wouldn't get COVID cases. See? It's not that I'm ever wrong, because imagine the kind of punishment that kid got from his racist KKK father. Holy shit. So he can't ever be wrong. If that's the consequences, punishment. Thus, we have to remove punishment, even from baby Donald Trump. So instead, it's the logos, it's the seeing, it's the telling the truth about what he's doing. That's the problem. So reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the pathologos maintains it, keeps it in place. It is nothing other than the effect of not reviewing what we ourselves have concluded. Because in not reviewing these conclusions, we tacitly accept. This is what we've been saying about the channel. We're in this game anyway. If we don't insist on the Logos model for ourselves, for our learning, and for society, we are tacitly accepting the most violent and oppressive opinions and beliefs to take charge. We can't not have a model. You can't not think. It's just which model do we choose? By playing the left wing, everything is relative to opinions and everything is just a vote. And who knows? Wherever the wind blows, that's how we should rule. Bullshit. You can't reject the model of truth and understanding because fascist or pathologos models will take its place. You can't just say you think too much. You're saying, don't be in charge of thinking so I can abuse you and do your thinking for you. My abusive logos will take the place of your vilification of thinking. So whenever anyone says you think too much, oh, okay, so you know the exact right amount of thinking. You know what's too much, and that's me right now. And you know what's too little. And you know the exact right amount. How did you learn that? Who taught it to you? How do I determine that exact amount of thinking? But you must also understand the nature of thinking and must assume it's a choice. You choose all the random thoughts and the distracting thoughts and the self-sabotaging thoughts. You choose that. You actively choose that. So you must have thought about this a lot. Or maybe you thought not enough. Or you thought too much. Because if we don't choose our thinking, all you are doing is inventing an excuse to inflict doubt and sabotage against my own self-development, thinking, and logos. You might not have to have that whole conversation. Just, so there's a too much and a too little and exact right, and you know what it is? Where'd you learn that? That might be enough to silence the thinking is bad crowd. Don't think too much. How about understand thinking? How about guide thinking? How about enjoy thinking? How about have fun with thinking? How about push the limits of thinking? How about think in higher, better, more profound ways? Rather than hate yourself for the fact that thinking happens, which is the alternative. So, speaking of thinking, use that thinking to review what you have yourself concluded, every claim of your pathologos, because it is in not reviewing, not thinking, not artfully guiding your own thinking, reflection, attention, and time while on this planet, by not reviewing these conclusions, then we tacitly accept the interpretations based upon learnings enshrined. So we will accept the interpretations that we have based upon the learnings. So again, not teaching, learning, we concluded. Yes, based on lies and stuff, but in a big charade. And we have enshrined these past learnings, this false analogy we continue up to apply to the present moment, even though it shouldn't be, because we have enshrined these interpretations based upon these past learnings in the pathologos. As long as we don't examine the legitimacy of the claims, they have power over us. This is why Trump goes to the news reporters and said, I won the golf tournament. Have you seen how fat and disgusting I am and how shit at golf I am? Well, I beat all these other golfers, and all they do is just hang out at the country club and then golf, because they're the billionaire class. Because that's a thing you accept, because I tell you to accept it, because I have power over you. And I'm going to test if I have power over you, because I'm going to insist on this false claim that I, this fat, disgusting Nazi, could win this golf tournament. And he stares them in the eyes as, right? And the reporter knows. I don't want to be sent to fucking El Salvador. Torture death camps. And they nod back, yes, that's right. You are the best golfer. You invented golf. Yes, you are the... Yes, and they both know that they're accepting a lie. We can't. We have to examine each. This is why it is immoral to accept gish gallops. So whenever you're debating someone, usually it's the right wingers like a Ben Shapiro or that other small-faced guy, I don't know, who tries to convince children at universities that Nazism is good. And he can't do that because it's irrational, but what he does is he speaks really fast. So he'll sneak in 15 different lies in the space of one sentence. That's immoral because we have to examine each and every claim. And if you're spitting out 15 at once, it will take us forever. So it's immoral to go on gish gallops. That's why monologuing or debates are fucking bullshit. Sorry, I'm getting a bit carried away. I say that because philosophers whose job is supposed to be to help us learn how to use words and think and solve these problems, they are the ones promoting debates. That's why I'm pissed. Debates are immoral, given we have a moral obligation to examine each and every claim that lies behind the pathologos' ignorance that keeps us blind to our problems, that keeps us suffering, and is causing genocides and concentration camps for people who try to use their logos. Fuck you, philosophers. Fuck you, wake up. Sorry, not fuck you. I was getting a bit carried away. I'm doing my best to emphasize the point that if you are a philosopher or you teach philosophy or for a teacher of any kind and you still teach debate, now you know, and someone has said to you pointed out the injustice of teaching debate, teaching gish gallop, teaching monologuing, and not the dialectic. Oh, hello, welcome to the chat. Genevieve. I love that name, Genevieve. I think Genevieve was a princess in a video game that I played as a kid, so I love that name. So, why is it immoral to teach debate and not dialectic? Because we have this obligation. Whoops. I need to just pause for a second. Okay, so I had to pause for a second to delete some videos, my hard drive, so I can continue the recording. But I'm back. Right, so another argument as to why debates are stupid. Every politician, every scammer at college, every political charlatan, debates are stupid. And gish galloping, monologuing is immoral. If we have an obligation to do this. A reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the pathologos is what we're struggling, is what, not reviewing these conclusions, we tacitly accept the false interpretations based upon the learnings that we have enshrined in our pathologos. As long as we don't examine the legitimacy of the claims, they have power over us. I am good. My world is baby chickens and planning a homestead. Oh, that sounds very cute. I have a baby chicken. So excited to hear about it. My philosophers are the trees. Oh, it's very holistic. What do the trees tell you? How do the trees talk to you? Do they ask you questions? Do they tell you things? These beliefs were crafted in our youth, and we struggle against them our entire lives. Thumbs up. Well, actually, thumbs up for the understanding of where our struggle and suffering comes from. But thumbs down that we have to go through it. But I guess thumbs up when we realize at the end of it, it was worth going through this process of having a problem, learning the necessity of addressing it, seeing the implications of our soul and the world if we don't, and therefore pushing ourselves to have the discipline to develop the virtues as character, courage, cool-headedness, the desire to discover truth above everything else. And in doing so, not only solve those problems, avoid those tragic consequences within our soul, within humanity, but also learn a skill and an art along the way of having gone through it. And also having ourselves experienced all the parts directly, so we know the states of mind, we know what it feels like having gone through it ourselves. Maybe at the end of that whole thing, which is where we're headed, if we actually do this, if we don't, again, we don't get to, because we all die. We all get sent to the Elon's Nazi death camps, or Putin's prison camps, or you pick one. You pick a fascist pathologos, but eventually nuclear Armageddon. So we either do it or we don't. So my money's on we doing it. I'm hoping that we do it. And we should. Then at the end of it, once we get through it, and we're living the good life, all of us together, every one of us, even the billionaire fascists, having learnt why they have these enshrined false interpretations causing them to suffer and inflict suffering of others. When we get through it all and we look back on the whole thing, maybe thumbs up for having gone through it all. Hard to say. For now, we have to get there. No words from trees, just pure energy. Do you think the trees are alive? Do you think they have consciousness? These beliefs were crafted in our youth, and we struggle against them our entire lives. The principle of this principle, or a principle, let's highlight that, because principles are key. Remember, we're learning to trust in the logos, reason, and principles of this art. The principle of forcing experience to conform to belief, or, right? Ever been in a conflict with anybody ever? Is that what they're doing essentially? Lying or trying to force experience to conform with the belief? Is that the difficulty, to break through this way of functioning? To see, hey, problems are not to be ignored or lied about, to try and conform reality to a false belief, nor are they excuses for punishment, but puzzles to be reflected on and understanding, to become mature and learn about what's involved so we can help others through that process ourselves. Is that what we're doing? Of course, trees are alive and conscious, but if they're alive and conscious and they're stuck to the ground, what state of mind do you think they're in? The principle of forcing experience to conform to belief is the act of interpretation. Oh yeah, that's what it is. So we got a name for that nonsense. It's called interpretation, which is interesting because this level of reading where every word counts, look how much highlighting. This is at doing our best to rise to that level of freedom and maturity and integrity that we are seeking in every aspect of our life. Our reading is an example of movement from interpretation to seeing as it is. We're trying not to project as best we can. And it helps to have friends here who are also curious and wondering. There's a saying, 2 dogs always walk further than 1 dog alone. So, so again, it's the same question we just talked about. Is the pathologos good or bad? While you're in it, it sucks. And it can bring huge suffering and the end of our civilization. But if we can get through it, understand its nature, resolve our problems, reflect on its cause, the cause for pathologos itself might end up being good, so long as having gone through the activity to reach that thing, to reach that freedom from human problems, that activity itself is another thing we gain. We gain a skill or an art. A skill or an art that can transcend this lifetime, necessarily. It has to, for it to be significant and be worth all this human suffering. To be maintained, not because it's enshrined in the pathologos as our problems are maintained, but maintained because it's enshrined in truth, reality, self, and logos. That we are. So we've enshrined a kind of art and understanding that can go with us through many lifetimes, and we can test that by remembering our dreams to see if that same way of being, an artful way of being, according to the logos, following the logos, trusting in reason and principles, is that the character that goes with you through your dreams? Because that's over a gap. And beyond this lifetime. So that same principle of doing the thing, removing our problem, and getting a skill by having to learn the skill to do the thing. Same thing with reading. We are doing the thing, learning the art so we can do it, apply it, benefit from it. But also the act of reading is itself learning to move from forcing our experience of reading to conform to belief, colored or completely controlled by our pathologos, by the false, the learnings that were our own conclusion that are enshrined and maintained in our pathologos. That forcing the reading experience to conform with our beliefs is reading interpretation. So the activity of reading gets you the thing as well as learning an art, learning how to read. And Pierre Grimes, the author of this book, famously would say, all I'm doing is teaching people how to read. Famously, if you've ever seen an interview with Pierre or talked to the man. So this principle is forcing experience to conform to belief. That's the act of interpretation. And the pathologos cannot be believed without interpretation. Bingo, bango, bongo. Wow. Well, not yay, but wow. Wow. The pathologos cannot be believed without interpretation. Why not? Once the interpretation is accepted, the dramatic episode with all its particular stages, okay, so we know we have a hierarchy, we can order this, and again, part of learning to read is pulling out the parts and ordering it, according to the dialectic, ideally. So here we have a list, and a hierarchy through time. So the first thing is the acceptance of the interpretation. So put that on whatever you're playing this game on. Notepad, whatever. Then the dramatic episode follows. Oops. Make it blue. And it has particular stages. So there are stages. So similarly, just as we are organizing these parts in learning to read, we are seeing we'll have to do it to our own lives because there'll be stages as part of the episode that we are in. That you can order those linearly through time. So once the interpretation is accepted, the dramatic episode with all its particular stages becomes the model. That's our model, remember? One of our problems of our current age is we are not insisting on a model of truth and logos that our politicians and businessmen adhere to. So we're letting them do whatever the fuck they want. And what they chose to do is a principle called profit. I'm going to extract everything to me and have no acknowledgement of or any reference to the good, truth, health, care, beauty, humanity, the planet. Nothing. That's what they insisted is a good model. And it's stupid and it's wrong, but if we don't insist on the model of truth, that's what will take over. It's all relative to opinions is stupid and harmful in this way. The only thing it's good for is when the fascists came, hey, you're speaking up against my model that profits above everything only, for me, not for you, for me. How dare you speak up against my principle? To the death camps, we can say, well, aren't we all entitled to our own opinion? That's the only saving grace of this. It's all relative. Okay, so it becomes the model for relating to all analogous situations. That's how we relate to everything. Similar enough. Which is why we're hunting for those analogous situations. Meaningful situations in the presence of beauty, where you need to be your best. Naturally, the adherence to a rational method means that there must be no interpretations or other forms of intrusion by the midwife. This goes both ways. Not only the pregnant parties' interpretations, we're examining them, why they're there, but the midwife can't do hers or his as well. Can't. Getting my chair under the table. So the midwife can't do the intrusions of their interpretations. Interpretation is when someone... Okay, now, we've seen the significance of interpretation. We've seen that's the functioning that we are annoyed with when we're in fights with our friends, when people are being unjust and doing unjust things. We see that they are trying to conform reality to their belief. That's interpretation. That's the thing we're trying to see is causing their blind spots. So we're seeing how key the word interpretation is. And we've even seen we're learning how to read without interpretation in this book. You might even say the spiritual experience is literally seeing reality as it is without any interpretation. So now we're seeing the significance of the interpretation. Let's define it. In Interpretation is when someone adds or subtracts from what is being considered. Bingo, bango, bongo.
Have you read Brand at all?
See? You're adding to what's there or taking away what is there. This adding and subtracting distorts the meaning. Oh, look at this. Isn't this gold? Isn't this so great that there was a human being who existed who thinks so clearly and simply and sees so clearly and simply and is able to put the two together to say such words? Isn't it nice to hear such words? Is it a relief? For me, it's like, thank you. Thank you, someone's speaking rationally. It's lovely. I mean, we talk a lot about the implications of ignorance in our world and Nazism and the destruction of humanity and wealth inequality and capitalism. It's all of these. It's just one thing. It's all just one thing. It's just the pathologos writ large. And it's only maintained because we're not doing this. Addressing each of their arguments rationally and maturely, while ultimately seeking not to conform to family beliefs because that's the pathologos, but to seek the truth about self and reality, have the cool-headedness to stay with your understanding, and the courage to resolve those conflicts we are ignoring. That's it. So yes, there is a significance to playing this game, encouraging our friends to play this game, encouraging everyone to play this game, make it fun and charming. I'm not especially fun and charming myself, but I'm trying. I'm getting there. I do play music. Check out my music stream, Jed Phoenix Music. Getting back into streaming live music. But there are other people out there who make this game of reflecting on reason, to find causes, to follow principles, to insist on principles, not hypocrisy, to see through the interpretations of other people who are acting harmful, projecting their own problems onto the world, heralding, telling on themselves, and then using it as an excuse to act in the exact same way against people that are different from their family. There are good, charming, beautiful people doing that and making the game seem fun. I'm doing my best to do that, and I'm learning as I go. So I hope you find it fun and interesting. But I find it fascinating and fun just to read these words. So yes, there are those bad things, which are all the implications of not following the logos. But what if we do follow the logos? We get this. This is fantastic. This is so simple, clear, obvious. I mean, there may be steps that we have to go through to see it, obviously. That's why we return again and again to this word, to these words, this reading, as we return again and again to our midwifery, as we return again and again to our highest goals, to trigger our blocks, because that's an analogous situation to those early conflicts. And we get this. What do we get? We get these sentences. Interpretation is when someone adds or subtracts to what is being considered. Neat! Isn't that cool? So simple, but so significant. And we all have that problem, and we will all continue to have that problem until we are problem-free. But it can be put in so few words, so eloquently. I think that's amazing. Now, let's see the next sentence. Let's ride this train. This adding and subtracting distorts the meaning of oh man. This adding and subtract so good. So he's just defined it, and now he's gone on from definition to demonstration. That's dialectic. Remember? Demonstration. Put it on the board. I know I repeat the dialectic over and over, but it's only 4 parts, and it's the structure of the logos. It's the path we have to walk, so it's worth repeating. The 4 parts. Here we go. See? Definite. My pen's okay. I have to do this before stream. Sometimes my pen doesn't work, but I've got a mouse. I'll use my mouse. Definition. This is what interpretation is. That's self itself. How does it function? Or how does this thing we've defined itself demonstrate or function to others, self to others? Those others having been affected by this thing, how do they go on to reach their goals in different areas? We talk about relationships. So, for example, we talked about the logos and how we can be bound by the logos in the pathologos, be bound by words in the pathologos, but we can also be bound by words in loving relationships, genuinely mature loving relationships, so long as they're bound by the logos. Workplaces, reading, so on and so on. That's division. And from all of those examples or divisions of the demonstrations of that which you've defined, you can synthesize it. Is there one key idea that came to light for you? What did you see that you hadn't seen before? Or is there one that's more metaphysically causal or primary, or that you can, one idea in all of those divisions that you've reflected on that stand out as more encapsulating or causal or the goal? That synthesis. Now, can you take that synthesis? So from this other to other, you've got one mega other. Take it back to this self. Other back to self. That's analysis. Taking that synthesis, taking it back to the original definition. Now you see the definition in a new way. You've evolved through this act of self-reflection, mind reflecting on itself. That's Usia. You're evolving up and up and up, rather than people who are in the pathologos are insisting on the exact same belief that they had started with from their family, which is a false belief about the self that they got, and they have enshrined in their pathologos due to an allegiance to the false image of beauty and truth, because this leads to the direct experience of beauty and truth, and beyond it, because there has to be a cause even of beauty and truth. That's the realm of philosophy. That's what Socrates, that's why we read Socrates. But the opposite, or the distortion of that, is interpretation, where you're insisting that the false beliefs you are here to reflect on and overcome are truth, and you are going to conform reality to that truth because of your allegiance to your love of your family images, false images, to the loyalty to a false kind of unity of a family bound in this kind of ignorance, be it Trump's KKK or Elon Musk's racist Nazism, or whatever. That's what we're insisting on. Doesn't go anywhere. It stagnates instead of evolving up. That's the game. And we want to play it everywhere. And also we can see it now reading, because he just gave a definition of interpretation. Now, the reason why I was so happy is I loved it. And the next sentence was a demonstration of it. How does what we just defined function? Now, he may then go on to give us divisions. This is what happens if it is there. This is what happens if it isn't there. And this is the conclusions that follow. The predictable, inevitable conclusions we can understand and prepare for as we introduce truth and reflection, because there are counterattacks to this movement by the slop. And then from that, he might come to a synthesis to redefine what we understand as interpretation in a new way. And that we call the conclusion stage. Only 4 stages. Let's see if he does it. Oh, and for any topic, you do it for what if the idea exists, what if beauty exists, and then you do another one, what if it doesn't? What if beauty is just in the eye of the beholder? What if it's just an opinion? What if it's just a shape and a color like the baby brains think? What would follow? How would you define it? How would it function? You got to do it for both sides. That's the dialectic. So, interpretation is when someone adds or subtracts to what is being considered. Definition. This adding and subtracting functions to distort the meaning of what is being reflected on. And it changes, notice these verbs, it into the belief of the interpreter. That's how it functions. What does it do? It distorts the meaning of what is being reflected, and it changes it into the belief of the interpreter. Right? So we talked about following the logos in midwifery and philosophy. So we're like journeying together. So we play this drop.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
But you can't ignore the principles of the art. You can't ignore that the midwife will have counterattacks, yada, yada, yada. And so otherwise, people will go into midwifery thinking it's an excuse to play out their pathologos role, and will distort the meaning that's being reflected on, and will just change the whole situation to fit the belief of the interpreter. It's very, very important to acknowledge happens in everything, including the most important and meaningful thing, philosophical midwifery. Interpretation. So our hypothesis maybe is because we've recognized a fantastic definition in the first line and then it's functioning, it distorts what is the meaning, it changes things to fit the belief. That's how it functions. Then we've got definition and demonstration. We are going to wonder if the next sentence or two is some kind of demonstration of the division stage. Because if this is the model of the logos and our author is someone who has mastered it and mastered midwifery, this may be just how he thinks and sees the world and talks, which is interesting because that's where we're headed. So that's our question. Is he going to do division next? Interpretation, conscious or unconscious, is the forced delivery of the interpreter's own offspring. We've narrowed it specifically with the use of offspring and that analogy to be an example. Whoops, wrong thing. Sorry about that. Interpretation, conscious or unconscious, is the forced delivery of the interpreter's own offspring. The result of a solitary fantasy of the interpreter. Forced delivery of a offspring, which is a fantasy. In contrast, the midwife, okay, so that's what happens if we don't follow the logos, follow the reason, yes. Follow the principles of the art, yes. And instead fall into interpretation. In contrast, the midwife, okay, in opposition to this, the midwife and pregnant party together, we move together. We stand up next to each other. We move together down the path of logos. We walk together. In contrast, in midwifery, the midwife and the pregnant party together proceed to deliver what is ready to be brought to birth. So we're looking for what is ready. So there must be some judgment on the behalf of the person with the art, the midwife. Are they ready to see it now? Are they fighting against it? Have they not seen the stakes? There are various aspects into seeing. I guess we are wondering, what are the various aspects we can become aware of as a master midwife so that we can see whether or not they're ready? And we definitely don't want to force an unready, stillborn baby, and especially a wind egg, a fantasy of our own. So, we work together. Following the principles of the art, of course. It's not compromise or anything weird like that. No. No. Compromise between my pathologos and your art. We'll meet somewhere in the middle. No. You still follow the reason and the art of midwife and midwifery. In order to, again, opposite of debate, it's win-win.
There's only two options. It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Different from debates and debate bro nonsense. opposite, where it's win-lose. Whether you're debating a lawyer in court, or you're debating someone at Harvard, or you're debating someone on a podcast to spread fascist right-wing propaganda. Anywhere. Not debate. Dialectic. You feel me, dog? Do you feel my dog? Do you feel me, dog? In contrast, the midwife and the pregnant party together proceed to deliver what is ready to be brought to birth. The birth must be the pregnant party's own. Must be the pregnant party's own. That's why when you do midwifery, you take care not to introduce ideas, and you can get artful in how you ask questions that can bring to the reflection on that stage without giving away the answer. What I'm trying to do as well here, I'm trying to point to, hey, this is your skill set. You're playing Sherlock Holmes, a video game, but it's for real. That's life. Now, in any video game, you have to find the mechanics. How does Sherlock Holmes solve puzzles in this particular game? On the PlayStation, different from the computer, whatever. Or this version other than part 4 or whatever. What's the method? What's the skill? What tools do we have? These are the tools. It's this. Primarily, it's this on the board. The dialectic, the 4 stages, 2 parts. And those other elements that we get as we practice this. We develop courage, cool-headedness. We nurture our desire for truth, above all, about self and reality. So I'm pointing to the skills that you use while pointing to how we can use it. For example, I did the first 2 categories in this paragraph, but I'm trying my best not to give away the answers, but to encourage you to play. So that's kind of a line that I'm trying to walk, because it's so important for everyone to realize, but it's also something that can't be taught. You have to play. It's your game. It's your life. You're here to do this. So I did the first couple, but then these last 2 categories, division and conclusion, which has 2 parts, synthesis and analysis, I'm going to not do. But ask the question to you, do you see it there? Can you put the words on it? Similarly, in midwifery, the midwife asks the questions to follow the structure, which happens to also be the dialectic structure, believe it or not. That's the thing. That's what being a paradigm and a true model means. I mean, if it's the true model for intelligibility, it's got to work in intelligible things. Any intelligible system that follows a natural, a hierarchy. Again, if we don't insist that this is the intelligible hierarchy, the Nazis will come in and say, we're going to give you a hierarchy. Billionaires at the top, white men right the way down, but above the rest. Then white women, then black, and then Chinese, or whatever they say. They will insist on their beliefs of their hierarchy if we do not insist on the truth. Now, we're not insisting on the truth. We are doing something different. We're inviting into mutual dialectic reflection because it's true and can be seen by anyone who wants to use their mind to know their mind and develop through the actual hierarchy of cognitive thinking. Are you moved by shapes and colors? Okay, now let's talk about some beliefs. Now, some right beliefs, true opinions from Socrates and people who know their shit. As a start. Now, you can recognize these people who know their shit because they're the sorts of people that encourage you to reflect, that embody this way of being, that have intelligence and empathy and reflect on causes and encourage you. That's how you know they're legit, because they are working or helping, encouraging you to move beyond right opinion. So right opinion or true belief is only a stepping stone. 2, work on this understanding, which then can elevate you to a higher cognitive function or higher use of mind knowing itself, or usia, where you can have remember or recognize the truth of reality, the truth of mind, and beyond that, the self. So that's how you recognize a person that might be worth listening to as you go through that process. And that's what we're trying to create the conditions for here. So, in midwifery, equally so, they don't want to influence your birth. So they'll ask questions to get you. What would you call this person? How would you say you're functioning in this dream? Where do you see the turning point in the dream or the drama? Dreams, or same thing. Dreams, drama, everyday problems, similar. Dreams tend to be more efficient to look at because there is more material in how to solve the puzzle, and will give you drama and give messages about when you're ready to give birth. But the same thing, everyday life drama. Where was the turning point? Where did you lose your cool? Where did you get angry? Where did you start interpreting? What would you say it's called? How would you describe that? You. It's all you. It's your logos. This is why it's important to tell people to fuck off if they're telling you don't think, because you're supposed to think, or don't speak. You're specifically supposed to think and speak and reflect on yourself. That's the only way you learn ever. And we just acknowledging that, learning the structure and guiding people through that and guiding ourselves through that. So, in a similar way, so too for reading. I'm trying not to give away the answers, but enjoy the questions, share my enjoyment with the questions. I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm wondering and trying to piece it together as I go as well. We are walking together. But also, I don't want to take away your insights. So I ask questions and leave things open. Sometimes. Don't I? See? Good baby stuffy. The birth must be the pregnant party's own and not contaminated by the beliefs of the midwife. Challenging interpretations is testing their legitimacy. So we make sure not to influence their interpretation, to see them clearly as they are, or give a good definition of them. But then we have to challenge them and test their legitimacy, which would be so that's why it's important to make sure the definition is theirs and not influenced by your words or your beliefs or your projection. So, if you want to function in the highest possible way, as Socrates, as the Dream Master, as a daemon, maybe even perhaps the demiurgos that creates each moment of this reality, then you need to be working on your own reflection, on your own problems too, so you can better do this, better facilitate this kind of reflection and birth without influencing through your own interpretations and false beliefs. Hard to do. That's why we have principles to address them as they come up. But also it means that even as a midwife, you've got to be doing midwifery yourself. Dream analysis yourself. And as we say, if you are lucky enough to find somebody else who loves understanding or has these characteristics, remember, these aren't things you've achieved. There are things that you are trying your best to do. That's it. Just trying your best. Courage to resolve conflicts, return to the unresolved conflicts, cool-headedness to stay with your understanding, and most importantly, the desire to discover the truth about self, oneself, the self, and reality. Find someone like that? Well, good for you. You will have a relationship that will be learning to trust and reason and to be guided by the principles, to solve problems, reach our excellence, function in the best way. You're finding someone to walk together along the human path of Logos to our highest purpose. And if you are lucky to have that sort of relationship, You are someone bound by not just love, but love and understanding. The logos. If you are, hooray for you. Tell us all about it in the Discord. Feel free to join the Discord, a link below. If you want to donate to the channel, there should be a link somewhere if you have the means to. And yeah. Follow the logos out there, people. That's the end of the stream for today. Yeah, some amazing truth bombs. Yeah. The significance of interpretation and valuing what we are learning to do instead, to see and read and function without interpretation as best we can, and to facilitate that movement for everyone else, or people who are willing and able to follow and play this game. Thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow we are doing midwifery, which is the other half. Wait, we are doing midwifery. We're doing philosophy. We're reading the Meno, learning what learning is, and asking if you can learn virtue. So we have a bit of an advantage to the people who have been studying Plato up until now, because they've really been doing it with one arm tied behind their back and really one eye closed, because we are learning midwifery, which is people haven't had before when they were learning Plato. So when Plato in Socrates, and Plato wrote the book, Socrates is the main character. When Socrates is talking to Meno about virtue or excellence, we know it's got to involve this. So we have a bit of a leg up on people who've studied Plato before, as well as we can actually study it for the first time because we actually have the real words that have been removed because of the counterattack to Socrates, which should have been anticipated, but now we can. So that's what we're doing next time. We're reading the Meno, wondering about virtue. What is learning? Can virtue be learned? And we're going to keep these questions in the back of the mind as we do so. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to tune into my music stream today, Jed Phoenix Music on Twitch, and we can chat more and ask questions. Right now, I'm trying out some new equipment, so it's in a few weeks, I'm going to have a bigger studio and performance, but yeah, for now, it's on the chill side. But check it out if you want to talk or listen to some tunes or discuss any of these ideas. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. This is my stuffy, and this is my chicken. Shout out to Genevieve and her baby chickens. And I'll see everybody next time. Bye.